Alrighty, grade 9. So this week we're going to look at surface area and volume. We're going to go way back to that first chapter we did at the beginning of the year. You're going to see a lot of surface area and volume stuff next year in Workplace 10. So this will be a really good review for that. So in the first part here, we're going to look at surface area and volume. So I'm going to do each object. We're going to do both of those skills. So if I'm going to start with surface area, remember that surface area means we have to find the area of all of the surfaces on the object. So we're going to start off simple with a rectangular prism here. Now, if you recall from class, we organized our work like this, FB, meaning front and back, because the front and the back are exactly the same size. And then we did top and bottom, because again, the top and the bottom are exactly the same size. And then we did the sides, because the right side and the left side are exactly the same size. So if I'm talking about the front and the back, so front, remember these are rectangles, so we're looking at length times the width, length times width. Here is going to be 19 times 39, and I'm going to double it because the front and the back are exactly the same size. And when I punch that in my calculator, I get 1,482. Then I'm going to look at the top and the bottom. So here's the top right here. So length times width, this is 19. This right here is 28. So I'm going to have 19 times 28. I'm going to double it because the bottom is exactly the same size. And when I do that, I get 1,064. And then lastly, the sides, I have length times width. Doesn't really matter which one's your length and which one's your width. So I have 28 by 39, and I'm going to double it because the right side and the left side are exactly the same, and I get 2,184. Now, I'm going to add those all together to get a total surface area of 4,730. Now remember your units here. We're talking in feet, and because it's area, it's going to be feet squared. Now, let's talk volume. So the general idea for volume, and all of your formulas are on your first assignment sheet, so you will find these there. But the general rule for volume is to take your base shape. So what shape is on the bottom? That's this rectangular shape right here. And then you multiply, so take the area of that base shape and then multiply it by how tall that is. Because if you can imagine, this shape continues to fill all the way up, right? And volume, that's exactly what volume is. How much can you fit inside of a container? So this shape kind of follows itself all the way up. When it comes to a rectangular prism, volume is always length times width times height. Now, if you think about that, let me just switch colors here. Length times width, that's going to give me the area of that bottom shape, and then I'm going to multiply it by the height. So I'm going to have 19 times 28 times 39, and we're going to get a final answer of 20,748. Now we're talking volume, so feet cubed. Volume is always cubed. All right, let's look at the cylinder. So surface area. Surface area for a cylinder is pi r squared. This is the portion of the formula that is the area of a circle. We actually have to multiply that by 2 because there are 2 circles. So 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r h is the cylindrical part around the outside. Okay, so you do have to know what the 2 parts of that formula mean. So if I fill this in, 2 pi, r stands for radius. Radius is the distance from the middle to the outside, half of the diameter. So 15 squared plus 2 pi times 15 times 28. Now, I want you to be using your pi button on your calculator, not 3.14. When you do that, this first part ends up being 1413.716694. 2 pi times 15 and 28 is 2,638.93. That goes on for a little bit. I'm going to add that last answer. Now, if you want to type this whole thing in your calculator in one fell swoop, if you know how to do that, go ahead and do that. You should get a final answer of 4,052 now I'm going to round to one decimal place, so 0.7. It was really 0.65, but I'm rounding, so 0.7 inches squared. That's surface area. Now, when it comes to the volume, I'm taking the area of the base. So my base is a circle, so the area of that is pi r squared. And I'm multiplying it by the height, so pi r squared h. That's volume of a cylinder. So pi times 15 squared times 28 gives us an answer of 19,792 inches cubed. Alrighty, we're going to look at two triangular prism questions. They're slightly different from one another. One is more work than the other. So when we're looking at area of a rectangular prism, we have a triangle on the front, which is exactly the same as the triangle on the back. And then we have a rectangle on this side, which may or may not be the same as the rectangle on that side. You can't just assume that they're going to be exactly the same. This is a particular case where they're not going to be. I also have a rectangle on the bottom. Okay, we just can't see all of those sides. That doesn't mean that they're not there. They're still there. So I'm going to start with the triangles. Area for a triangle is base times height divided by 2. So we're looking at base, which is 5, times the height, which is 12, divided by 2. So I'm getting an answer of 30. But there's another triangle on the back. So I'm going to times that by 2 and get 60. Okay? Then I have the rectangle. So I'm going to have rectangle number 1. I'm going to use rectangle number 1 as this side. So length times width is 19 times 13. 19 times 13 is 247. I have triangle 2, which I'm going to use the bottom. So again, actually let me erase some of this and I'll try to draw in our 3D lines here. Okay, so if you can imagine the length and the width of this bottom rectangle, it's 19 times 5, which is 95. And then rectangle 3 is this side right here. So we have 19 times 12, which is 228. So total surface area, I'm going to add up the 3 rectangles, so 228 plus 95 and 247, as well as the 2 triangles, which was 60, and I'm getting 630 feet squared. Okay, now if I'm looking at volume, now this is where you have to think about this. Volume is the area of the base shape times the height. Now, I am willing to bet that a lot of students want to say that the base shape of this is a rectangle because that's what's on the bottom. Now, if you think about this, does a rectangle continue to fill up the space as you move towards the top? The answer to that is no. That rectangular shape doesn't hold the whole way that you're moving up. So you have to think about this as if we tip it over on its side. The shape that holds for the entire time as you move up is this triangular shape. So our bottom shape is actually a triangle, and it maintains that shape for the height of 19. So for volume, our base shape is a triangle, base times height divided by 2, and then we're going to multiply that by the height of the prism. So base times height divided by 2, 5 times 12 divided by 2, and then we're multiplying that by the height of 19. So I already know that 5 times 12 divided by 2 is 30, so 30 times 19 is 570 feet cubed. That's my volume. Now, why is this next triangular prism a little bit different? Well, same idea. I still have a triangle on the front and on the back, and then I have 1, 2, 3 rectangles. The difference here is that in order to find the area of my triangle, base times height divided by 2, the base of a triangle is obviously the bottom, but the height of a triangle is the distance from the top to the bottom where they meet at a 90-degree angle. This right here is the height, and I don't know that number in this question. If I go back to this last example, I'm just going to change colors here for a moment. This was my base, and this was my height. They already met at a 90-degree angle, so I didn't have to do anything to those numbers. But here I do, because I don't know this. So I have to deal with half of this triangle right now, and hopefully you recognize that as a right triangle. This bottom distance is going to be half of 8, so that's only going to be 4. And I have to use Pythagorean theorem here to find out what h is going to be. Now, Pythagorean theorem, C is always your hypotenuse. Hypotenuse is always opposite of your 90-degree angle. So 5 has to go in for C. 4 can go in for whatever. So 4 squared plus b squared equals 5 squared. This is going to be 16 plus b squared is 25. I'm going to subtract 16 from both sides. See how much we use solving equations, grade 9s? Solving equations needs to be something you're just comfortable with. 25 minus 16 is 9. And then the opposite of something squared is square root. That gives me just b. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other. The square root of 9 is 3. So our height here is 3 feet. Now I can go back to doing my surface area. So base, I'm still using a base of 8. That's how big the triangle is, the whole triangle. Base times the height, we just found out was 3, divided by 2 is going to be 12. Then I have rectangle number 1. I'm going to use this side as rectangle number 1. Length times width. Now the other triangle, triangle number 2, happens to be exactly the same. 14 times 5 over here on this side. So 14 times 5 is 70, so they're both going to be 70. And then the triangle the rectangle, I think I keep saying triangle, my apologies. The rectangle on the bottom is 14 by 8. And 14 times 8 is 112. Sorry, I got to back up here a little bit. This up here is the area of one triangle, but we have 2. We have one on the front and one on the back. So if I times that by 2, we get 24. So total surface area will be 112 plus 70 plus 70 plus 24. I'm getting 276 feet squared. And for volume, we're looking at the area of the triangle, because that's our base shape, times the height. I already know from work over here that the area of one triangle is 12, and the height of my prism, or the length in this case, however you want to look at it, is 14. So 12 times 14 is 168 feet cubed. So for the individual shapes, grade 9s, I want you to be doing both surface area and volume. When we get to the composite objects, so you have a second assignment of composite objects, you are simply doing the surface area, okay? So I'm going to break this up into two parts. First part being the box, because surface area of a box I think is the easiest. So I'm going to have the front and the back, the top and the bottom, and the sides. The front and the back are 1.4 times 4.8, and there are two of them, the front and the back. So I'm going to double it, and I get an answer of 13.44. The top and the bottom is 2.8 times 4.8, and again, I'm going to double it because there's a top and a bottom, and I'm getting 26.88. And the sides are 1.4 by 2.8, and there are two sides. So again, I double it and get 7.84. Now, I'm just going to quickly add those all up. Not quite done with those numbers yet, but 48.16, that's the box. Now, if I have the triangular prism, let's deal with the triangles first. So base times height divided by 2. Now see here again. Oh, I think I'm missing some information here. Okay, let's just say I'm pretty sure I'm missing information here. Let's say that all of the sides are 1.2 centimeters. Okay, this will be an equilateral triangle. So I know the base will be 1.2, but I do not know the height again. Let's say this is also 1.2 and this is 1.2. So I have to do some legwork here to find the height of that triangle. So 1.2 squared plus b squared is going to be equal to, oh, sorry, my bad. The hypotenuse is 1.2, but this other side, I'm just going to change colors. This other side is only half of 1.2. So 1.2 divided by 2 is 0.6 squared. So 0.6 squared is 0.36. And 1.2 squared is going to be 1.44. I'm going to subtract 0.36 from both sides. B squared is going to be equal to 1.08, and then I square root that and get an answer of 1.04. So back over to my formula now. Base times height divided by 2. Oops. 1.2 times 1.04 divided by 2 is 0.624. But there's a triangle on the top, on the front, and a triangle on the back, so I'm going to double that. Now, if you wanted, you could have just skipped the step of having divided by 2 and I get 1.248. Okay, then I have this rectangle on the side and I have another rectangle on that side that I'm going to do. So length times width, that's going to be for rectangle 1, let's say. Rectangle 2 happens to be the exact same size. So 1.2 times 1.2 is 1.44 for both of them. Now, here's where your kind of decision making has to come into scale. There is technically a bottom rectangle on this triangular prism, but it's not part of the surface area because we're not seeing it. That triangle is resting on top of that box, which means we can't see it. So I'm not going to include it. I'm going to skip adding in rectangle 3. So I'm going to add together 1.44, 1.44, and 1.248, and I'm getting 4.128. So my total surface area is going to be 48.16. That's the rectangle or the surface area of the box. 4.128. That's the surface area of the triangular prism. Now, the only thing is, so I didn't include the bottom of the triangular prism, so that's fine. But I do have to subtract the area of what it would be. Now, I only have to subtract it once because I didn't include it from the triangular prism to start with. But it's covering up a portion of this box that happens to be that size. And so I have to subtract 1.44 at the end. That's the area of one of those rectangles. So I'm getting a total combined surface area of 50.848. So I'm going to round this to 50.8 centimeters squared. Don't forget your units. Okay, that is everything, grade 9s. Good luck with the surface area questions this week. I'm not including any answer keys this week, so you can submit them to me for marking.